Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. So, today we have Emiliano. He is a second year PhD student and he's doing his PhD not in any university or the regular things that we have heard about, but he's doing his PhD in a quantum tech industry, and that's IQM. Emiliano, thank you for joining the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's super nice to talk to you.
It's something not so often that we hear about students doing their PhD in industry, especially in the field of physics. Because whenever someone says PhD, the first thing that comes to our mind is okay, he has done his bachelor's, he has done his master's, now he's going to be affiliated to some university and will be working under some supervisor, and then maybe he's going to postdoc. So, this is the usual thoughts that we get. But can you tell us, like, what's it like to do a PhD in industry?
Right. Yeah. I guess just to quickly clarify that, like, so I still have university that I'm working with, but it's like a kind of like a dual thing, right? So I am working with the University of Hamburg and at the same time, like, with this company called IQM. But yeah, I mean, so I guess it's a relatively common thing in Germany to do an industrial PhD. And yeah, so your question was like, how is it?
Yeah, how is it to do PhD? Like, for example, let's say someone like me who's doing a PhD in academia. So I have a
Mm,
supervisor, and then we have our like weekly meetings with them and we do the studies.
mm.
So now you're also affiliated to a university and industry. So how does trade-off take place?
Right. So I have a professor who supervises my project from the university, and I also then have like at least one person with the company that is working with me on the same project. So basically, I have like a supervisor from the company and one from university, but the one that I work on like daily basis is the one from the company because I'm located here in Munich, which is where the company is. And then I meet my academic supervisor, I guess, once every month or once every 2 months or something like that.
So what is the role of your academic supervisor in your PhD?
I guess it varies like how big the group is, but in my case, he's still very involved in the project. So he helped us kind of define the project in the beginning, and now his role is basically every time that we get stuck on something or that we need some like ideas on how to continue with something, then we check with him, or even just sometimes when we have like some nice results, just to like let him know, and then he gives us new ideas of what to do next.
Okay. And then should your company and the university have some kind of contracts or some kind of, I don't
Mm,
know, talk between them so that they will send also their students to that university?
well, not that I'm aware of, because actually, so there's in the company in Munich, there's at least like five of us who are doing this thing, and a bunch of us have different supervisors. So there's no like a one-to-one like correspondence with the company and a university here. Each of us kind of decided who we wanted to work with.
So it's your independent decision to choose the supervisor from academia then.
In some sense, like you have to, at least in my case, I was interested in working with this professor, and so I talked to the one of the heads of the department at IQM, and they helped me contact him, and it's kind of like a win situation for the academic supervisor because the company pays the whole salary, so then it's
Okay.
a kind of like a free PhD for them, so that's
Yeah.
good.
Okay. Okay. And then why did you choose to do PhD in a industry than academia?
Yeah, I mean, I think this might be a bit slightly controversial, or like it just really kind of depends on the taste of the people, because I was a bit not so happy with how sometimes things in academia are a bit like unorganized, or I don't know. When I actually started working at IQM when I was doing my master's, like as a working student. That's a thing here in Germany. And I just like the kind of the industrial atmosphere, like like the company atmosphere, which is still not as big as a big corporation because we're still a startup. So I think it was a good compromise. While in academia, like I felt like things sometimes were a bit hard to deal with, or things were not as organized as I would have liked them to be. But of course, this depends on the group, so I don't want to speak generally. But yeah, that was kind of my impression. I like the vibe of going to an office like every day, like and working there.
But actually, doing a PhD in industry, is it like really different than doing in academia?
In terms of what?
In the sense, whatever results that you produce would be considered as your
Mm.
company's product. So maybe you and your friends can work together on a project and still be considered as a company's output rather than like In academia, whatever I do will be considered as like my paper or my work.
Yeah.
But in company, is that like a different thing or is it still same as academia?
Yeah, and if I understand your question, I think that's a very good point because that's also something that I'm still getting used to. Because yeah, like if you produce something, I think by my contract it belongs to the company. So of course I have the affiliation on the paper, so this can be published and everything. But there's a lot of other things that you have to go through before. So just to give you an example, I submitted to give a talk at this like the APS meeting in March, and like it has been kind of non-trivial to get to the point where we can actually present the results because we have to talk to the lawyers of the company and we have to submit like a notice of invention and then like get the access from all the people. It's kind of a bit of a pain, to be honest. So yeah, there's this additional like a IP restriction. Yeah.
Can you like give us more detail? Like, what is the actual process of going through this IPs, lawyers, and stuff before you present your work at a conference?
Yeah, so I'm still actually now very new to the process because this is the first time that I have to do this. So I literally just submitted the notice of invention like 2 weeks ago, and yeah, I think as far as I understand, now that I submitted this, somebody's gonna come to me and tell me like, okay, like yeah, we have to change some things here, or like this is not like described well enough, and then after that, I think I'm gonna have some meetings with the IP department, and that they're gonna sort of like help me if they think that it's useful for the company, it will become a patent, I think, and if not, then I can just present it at the conference, but I still cannot tell you more because I it's my first time. So
Okay. So also, do you feel this more pressure on you? Because if I have to present my work, so it's something in a conference, it's like my work and what like my supervisor has supervised. But in your case,
Mhm.
like you're presenting a company. So is there like too much of pressure on you?
Well, I had not thought about that, and now I'm gonna be pressured. Well, yeah, no, I had not thought about that. I would say so far it wasn't a concern.
Sorry for putting this thought in your mind. Regarding your topic, so do you have the freedom to choose what you want to work on? How does it happen? Because now you have a supervisor in
Hmm.
a university and then you have supervisor from your company. So how does this take place?
Yeah, you're asking very good questions. You're asking like the very like also things that in my head are a bit controversial because it's are things that I'm not necessarily used to or not fully comfortable with. So yeah, this is the topic has to be decided between both, and it has to be within the constraints of something that is still relevant or interesting for the company. Um, which is, I guess, one thing that I would say I would miss from academia, because I guess in academia, like especially in math and physics, a lot of the time it's just like there's this really cool topic that I want to learn about or like to research more into, like let's do it. And yeah, like in the context of a company, I guess you have to align with the supervisor from the company and yeah, basically find something that is also interesting for them, which is of course more restrictive.
Okay. Also, like I had like one friend who did his internship for a short time in a company
Mm-hmm.
while doing his PhD, and he felt the atmosphere to be so different. In
Mm-hmm.
the sense, he said like if he even does some paperwork or some, let's say, helping him to do something in presentation for some other student, it's
Mm-hmm.
still counted as some input given from him, because whatever the result comes out is considered as the entire team's output, not like as an individual. Whereas in
Mm-hmm.
academia, if I kind of spend my time helping you out in some work, let's say, it doesn't count as some valuable work that I've done in my PhD. So I
Mm-hmm.
really liked how that every single thing that you do in industry, like the work you do in industry is counted. And also it's
Mm-hmm.
like a bit more relaxing than academia because you work as a team. So there's like less anxiety and is what I heard. Like how true is that?
Yeah, I mean, so I can talk to you from my experience at the company because we have a few other PhDs, as I mentioned, like in a similar situation as I am. So I would say, yeah, like so it's a question like sort of like how the collaboration is different, or I didn't fully get
In
what's.
the sense, so when you work, okay, let's maybe clarify this aspect. So now you're doing your PhDs, like, are you working just like the way we in academia we work? In the sense, like you have a project and you're just working alone. It's not like a group
Uh,
activity. How is it?
Right, so you could, I mean, general, like sometimes involved in different projects. And actually, maybe that's something that I should have mentioned also before. Like, as part of kind of like my contract with the company, is that some of my time is dedicated to company work. which is sometimes not directly related to my PhD. So in my case, like some percentage of the time that I spent at the office is used for developing some software that is I don't think I could include it in my PhD, and like that. In some sense, that is more collaborating with other team members who are also not a PhDs, they're just doing like this software development. So that would be on one side. And then on the research part, I would say, yeah, I have this coworker, like this teammate, who is working very closely with me in this project. And yeah, I think in general, it's not so hard to also collaborate with other members of different teams in the same department. So I would say it's very, very collaborative.
Okay. And let's say you want to like collaborate with some external supervisor or
Mm-hmm.
collaborator, not from your university or your company. Like, how much freedom do you have in doing that?
Yeah, also a very good question because I recently tried to do this. You have to. So this actually happened last week. Like we were talking to a person who is from Abu Dhabi, and we wanted to work with them. And I think, if I remember correctly, if they didn't claim any IP, then working with them was gonna be super easy. But then if they wanted to claim some IP, then we had to somehow share this, and then that becomes more convoluted. So yeah, I would say that's as good of an answer as I can give you right now. It kind of depends how the other party is interested in getting IP out of the project.
Okay. So if tomorrow I and you we want to collaborate on some project, how easy will it be like for two PhD?
I guess for a PhD, yeah, like I think I would have to probably talk to the IP department and ask them like, hey, there's this person, they're from this university, and they're gonna make you sign some contract that says like, okay, this is how we're gonna split the invention, like, and we have to come up to an agreement, I think. Yeah.
Also, for example, in my case, if I have to get the PhD degree, then I have these rules. I mean, the criteria that I need to like tick them.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I need to have these many number of papers, attend
Yeah.
conferences, and also teaching duty. I have to like
Yeah.
teach 4 hours per week to the bachelor's or masters. So similarly, how does your contract look?
So these actually the requirements to graduate come from the university and not from the company. So I have like the same requirements, I think, or very similar requirements as any other person from the University of Hamburg, because that's where my supervisor is, which is like I need to have 3 papers as first main author and attend conferences and so on. But the teaching part is not there actually, because I think the teaching might be usually associated with your payment and salary. And in my case, this is fully provided by the company, so the university doesn't really require me to teach at all.
Also, like in academia, we feel there is so much of freedom in the sense I don't have to like go at 9 a.m. and check
Mm,
and then come out at 5. I don't have to maintain that strict timings. I just have the freedom. Like I can even study on Saturday, Sunday, like it doesn't matter.
mm,
Everything that I do will later on reflect in the paper or the work that I do. But
right.
in company, do you have that freedom like study or do work whenever you want, or should you like stick on to the timings?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that is very good that I'm doing my PhD at a quantum startup. So it might be different when it comes to like bigger companies, but at least in our case, it's also still very flexible. Like I can tell you, I'm not a morning person, and I usually go to work like at 10:30 or sometimes 11, and then I leave work like at 8 p.m. or something like that, So it's still very much like up to you, like when you want to work. I guess it's kind of also part of the country's culture to not work so much on the weekend, which I guess for a normal PhD that's not the case. But I felt like, it's also fine, like I think we somehow mix a bit this idea of like still being a PhD because you have flexible during the day, but you somehow don't need to necessarily overwork on the weekends, which I like a lot, I think.
Also, are there any things from academia that you wish that are inculcated into the PhD system that you do in an under?
I think one thing I could be missing from academia would be like this kind of like more theoretical or like blackboard discussions with like different members of the team. Because I think, and this is kind of just what I've seen, like from an in an industry context or in a company context, you have like some certain deadlines that you have to fulfill because of projects, right? Because especially the company that I'm working for, we have deliveries, and sometimes people are like kind of like very like focused on that, and they have this pressure that they need to fulfill this, and that I think limits a bit the time that they have left to learn new stuff that are unrelated to their projects. And I think this kind of like, I can call it, I guess, curiosity or like flexibility on the curiosity that you can have. It's probably a bit better in academia. But yeah, it's just, as I said before, because of the nature of like the requirements that you have.
Are there any things that you wish that even academia inculcate from industry? Like, ah, we have these better things. Maybe academia can follow these things so that our
Yeah,
lives will be better.
I do think that like because of all these kind of very well defined procedures in the company, I think things go, I guess, more smoothly when you want to do things. Like there's some things kind of better defined, and I think in academia people tend to be a bit more relaxed, and then some things are harder to get done. So I would say maybe the organization would be something that I would require, or like I would like wish was better in academia. What else? Maybe the salary also. I guess PhDs, even in physics, tend to be like underpaid for their PhDs. And I think, at least in my case, doing it in industry, it's a bit more fair. Yeah, I think that's also one thing. I think that's all I can think for right now, but maybe I can come up with more later.
Okay, okay. So, also, can you take us through this process of publishing papers? How is this in a company? So, you have some research output, and now, like, how do you decide should I publish this or does it go to the lawyer, PA, and so on?
Yeah, very good question. So I think as PhDs, we have kind of this agreement that we are able to publish our work no matter what. But I think also, regardless, you have to go through this IP process. And things have also changed a bit because, like in the beginning, I know like that some PhDs who were working for this company from previous years ago, like they were a bit more free, that they were basically patenting almost everything, and they were a bit like you're not relaxed on that. And I think as the company has matured, like then the things that we want to patent, because it's also expensive to patent something and to protect it, are a bit more restrictive. It's like, if something is really like gonna be useful for the future, then we're gonna patent it, and if not, then you can just publish it. But yeah, regardless, we can anyways publish our paper. At least that's the agreement that I have. Because we need to graduate, right?
So, will it be easier if you want to shift to academia later on?
That's a good question. I don't know. I have heard for sure that like people don't regard industrial PhDs in the same way that they regard academic PhDs. I don't know if that is different now because of the field that we're in, because like in quantum technologies, like I think a lot of people are doing this thing of like doing a PhD in industry because there's so many of these startups doing this. So I could imagine that for us it might be different. It might be probably similarly regarded as an academic PhD, but at least the usual stigma is that it's not.
So, what are you planning to do next after your PhD?
Very good question. A very tough question. I don't know actually. Recently, I've been thinking because I've been getting a lot into learning more about math, and I do miss a bit of this like freedom on just finding something that I'm interested in and just like learning about it. So I could be thinking of doing a postdoc, but I also do not see with bad eyes, staying at a company like because I've also worked for some other startups, like one of them in Canada, and for some, I worked for a national lab recently in the US. So I could also see myself doing that. To be honest, it's still pretty much open.
Is there a concept of doing postdoc in an industry?
I have never heard of that actually.
And does it even make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, I also don't know at that point. For sure, I've heard a lot of PhDs, but postdocs in industry, I don't think I've heard that,
Okay, okay.
which is weird.
And like on a personal note, how is your life? Like, how are you balancing your personal mental health versus doing PhD?
Yeah, that's also very important. I mean, I can tell you that at the company, maybe that's also, you were asking about these things like that, the company or like that academia could learn from industry. That's one thing that I like in the company context is that they provide us with a lot of like extra benefits that in academia you don't have, right? Like, so we have this, how do you say, like subscription to do sports. We have this platform for like mental health related stuff. So, I feel like this is not, or as far as I've seen, this is not a common thing in academia, right? That
Yes.
because it's more like, okay, you're doing your research and that's it, right? Like that's the end of the story. But here is like, you're part of a company, so they also want to kind of take care of you. And there's all this like additional health insurance, mental health platform, and like additional benefits to do sports. So I think that is something that I really appreciate of being in an industry. And yeah, related to your question, then like how do I take care of this? I think, as I mentioned before, I try to not work so much on the weekends because that's something that I used to do a lot in my masters, and I think I like got pretty much tired and like yeah, like burned out from that. So I try to now keep strict separation between like home and work, right? So
I think that is one thing that every PhD needs to like do. We need to
oh
have a
yeah,
strict, we
yeah,
need to set
yeah,
boundary
that's very
from our
hard. Yeah.
life. Otherwise, we just won't realize how the time passed away and how we missed all the things.
Mm,
We don't even realize when we are burned out. We're just working and like so much focused on getting the results and understanding or
yeah,
solving the problem.
it's
I think
very complicated.
mental health is like one concept that academia has to like start focusing on.
Yeah,
Not that we are like any mentally sick or something, but we just don't realize when have we like sabotaged our own health. We just don't even realize that we're so much into the process.
yeah. I think that would also benefit the people, right? Because I think a lot of people associate academia with this burnout culture or like this, like just like never resting culture. And I think if this was different, then maybe more people would be interested in staying in academia.
Also, like those who have just completed their masters and who are like next looking to get into some PhD program. So let's say they have both options now, academia and industry, like where to do their PhD. So initially, what are the factors they have to consider
Hmm.
to choose which path they want to go? So
So like, what kind of points would somebody consider to decide between academia and
yeah.
industry? I see. Okay. Hmm. I guess one thing would be like that you can make sure that even within these constraints that the company gives you, because I said before, like the project has to be something that is aligned with them. I think you have to make sure that even within these constraints, you're still happy with the project that you're going to have. Because it could be that like, the constraints are just so tight that you're going to end up doing that you're not even enjoying, which I think doesn't make sense. So that would be one thing. What else? Yeah, like just be kind of like aware of this like different way of like working, right? Like there's deadlines. Like it's, for example, now I have like meetings every week with other stuff that are a bit more related to work, right? So you have to be aware that it's not just gonna be 100% time working on your PhD, which it's fine. What else? I think for me in particular, it helped a lot is that I knew the company already before. So like knowing that it's not gonna be like, because there's other bigger corporations like there's a lot of big old German companies that could be a bit more strict in these things, but in my case, because it's a scale up startup, things are still pretty flexible. You can still talk to people that are like higher up in the chain, and I think that helps a lot because then I don't know. I would feel like very, very like tight or very like restrained if every decision that I have to make has to go through like a very long chain where I don't even know who is in this chain. So I think if yeah, I'm not sure.
Also, like, do you
Okay.
think there is higher chances of getting a job later on in a quantum tech industry if you have a PhD from the industry compared to the academia?
I think so. At least that is what I've talked to like with my supervisor from
Mhm.
the company also. He has told me like how when you're in industry you also like develop a lot of these like soft skills that you need to work in an industrial position. I mean some of those things I think it's like to write cleaner code than what you would usually do in academia. Because like I mean, of course, in academia you still learn to code a lot, right? Like, but it's a lot of the times it's just for yourself, and like it's can become like very ugly and very messy. And in industry, I think you acquire this like better like the mentality that what you're producing also is probably gonna be used by somebody else, so you have to like make it usable. Yeah.
What other soft skills would you learn? I don't know.
I think it's also, yeah, like, I don't know how to describe this, but I would say like how to collaborate or how to move yourself in a company context. Because I guess in academia you can also go pretty much your 3 years working by yourself, right? And I think in a company you have to also collaborate a lot, like within different departments and communicate with different departments. So maybe even sometimes like talk to business people and like talk to, because sometimes you have to convince them of something, right? So I think this is kind of things that you learn, or at least that I think you could learn in industry, like how to talk to people who are not just necessarily like doing the same thing as you. And I find more and more this is very important because you could have a very good idea, but if you're not able to like convey the message or like communicate it to the right people, then it's gonna be hard.
Thank you so much for sharing so many your personal insights about how to do PhD in an industry. And as a last fun bit, I have rapid fire round. So,
Okay.
are you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Your first question: if you had to explain your PhD to your grandparents in one sentence, what
Physics.
would you say? Biggest culture shock you experienced after leaving Guatemala?
Lifting, like that is like that people open the windows like even during the winter, like to let the air come in. Like I hate that, but yeah.
Networking opportunities better than academia? Yes or
Uh,
no?
I would say yes.
What do you miss the most from home during intense work
Oof,
weeks?
food, warm, nice food.
If you weren't doing a PhD in quantum tech, what would you actually be
I
doing
would
right
love to
now?
be a football player.
Funniest misunderstanding someone has had about your job?
Back home, I was telling somebody what I did. I said physics, and that in Spanish is like close to the word that you say for doing sports. So he thought I was like studying to be a sports teacher. Yeah,
One skill that surprisingly helps you survive a PhD.
boundaries, like time boundaries, and like yeah, I think that's very important.
Early bird or night owl researcher?
Night owl, for sure.
One thing you'll definitely not miss after finishing your PhD.
Oof, hard. Will not miss something from a PhD. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard. Maybe you earn more after that, so maybe better salary, something that it's gonna be. Yeah.
So thank you so much. It was really nice talking to you and getting to know how it is to do PhD
Yeah.
in
Thank you. Thank you so
industry.
much
Thank
for
you
the
so much
invite.
for
I had
joining us
a lot of
today.
fun. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you all for watching QubitMonk. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay curious, stay kind, and I'll see you in the next one.